It's hard to believe, 43 years after it was first released, that Stanley Kubrick's classic horror film The Shining was initially met with a mixed reception. Stephen King, the author whose book the film was based on, hated the movie, and the film was nominated for 2 Golden Raspberries, Worst Actress for Shelley Duvall and Worst Director for Kubrick. The truth is, The Shining is a masterpiece by certainly my favourite director and probably one of the best Hollywood will ever produce. The 1970s and 80s were a great time for horror films. Many of the franchises still popular today were born in those 2 decades. Halloween, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist. To say you would have been wise to wear a brown pair of pants to the cinema at that time would be like saying you'd be smart to wear an extra pair of undies for visiting your grand's house after she's made her famous 5-bean chili. But The Shining stands high above even all of these. It is a film designed to unsettle its audience. Every image, every sound, every movement was engineered to up the tension, to build suspense, whipping into such a frenzy that the movie's last 20 minutes are likely to leave you wound tighter than a violin string. The story's simple. Struggling writer Jack Torrance is offered the role of an off-season caretaker in a hotel in a snow-covered mountain in Colorado. The Overlook, though, an opulent old building, has a violent past. 10 years before the events of the movie, another caretaker murdered his wife and 2 daughters there, an incident put down to the isolation of a long winter. None of this puts off our Jack, though, who sees it as an opportunity to finally write his great American novel. Tossing his typewriter into his little old automobile, he takes his wife Wendy and his son Danny up to the hotel, sees off everyone who works there and settles in for the coldest few months this side of a trip to Pluto. Pretty soon, things start to go wrong. No spoilers there before you all start giving the movie Maverick a bit of a grilling. This is a horror movie. The work doesn't come as easy to old Jackie boy as he'd hoped. Danny starts to see some pretty creepy things around the hotel, and Wendy gets as bored as a vampire in a vegetarian restaurant. One thing leads to another, and the caretaker situation 10 years earlier becomes a distinct reality again. But can Wendy and Danny get away before the hotel, its ghosts and Jack write a violent end to all of their stories? I don't think the quality of acting was ever the highest priority for Kubrick in his movies. Not that he'd settle for bad acting, of course, but I believe the look of his films, the movement, the sound, meant more to him than performances. He was originally a photographer, of course. But if I had to pick any of his films where the acting was brilliant, it would be The Shining. Child actors are often ropey, but Danny Lloyd, who played Danny in the movie, did an excellent job bringing his fear to life with little more than facial expressions. Jack Nicholson is, of course, magnificent as Torrance, grunting and gurning through his crazed performance like a devil brought to life. But it's Shelley Duvall who truly shines here. The contrast between her total abject fear and Nicholson's clown-like madness makes the film. There's a story, maybe true, maybe not, that Kubrick treated Duvall awfully on set to keep her on edge. Right or wrong, you certainly can't argue with the results. Speaking of suffering, the film's music and sound is designed to extract every ounce of fear out of the viewer. The music is often booming, uncomfortable to the ear, and must have been overwhelming inside a cinema back in the 80s. It often appears at the wrong time, like a YouTube ad interrupting your favourite song. Simple sound effects like Danny's trike scraping the hotel's floor resemble roaring monsters, while some of the movie's most stomach-churning scenes are backed by nothing but silence. All of this works perfectly to heighten the tension and speaks to Kubrick's ability as a director. It's therefore no surprise that the movie looks immaculate too. Kubrick could, of course, make a bird's nest look like the inside of a Swiss watch, but what he did with The Shining matches his other visual masterpiece, 2001: A Space Odyssey. The Overlook Hotel is filmed with such precision. Perfectly formed lines fill every screen. The camera moves like it's a character in the story, stalking and tracking Wendy and Danny. Colours are chosen with the same care my wife uses to pick out the new paint for our front room. Red is visible in nearly every shot of the film, for obvious reasons. But this is a horror flick, and all the acting, sound design and cinematography in the world wouldn't amount to an axe in the back of the head if it wasn't scary. How does The Shining hold up in this way? Well, scary's probably the wrong word here. Kubrick's film isn't scary in the same way a lot of Hollywood horror films are scary. There's only one death in the whole movie, and you're not likely to be jumping out of your seat that much either. But the film is creepy. It's tense. The story tells you right from the start what's going to happen. Literally. We know Jack's going to descend into madness, and in lesser hands this would kill the tension, but in Kubrick's it only ramps it up. Nothing in this film is as it should be. Sounds don't match the visuals. Chapter titles start with which month we're on, then week, then day, then hour. Are the ghosts in the movie real? Imagined? It all adds up and it leaves the audience as off-kilter as Torrance himself. It seems a bit silly looking for nitpicks with a film like this. It's like criticising the Mona Lisa for a lack of eyebrows. But this is a review and we must keep up-and-comers like Stanley Kubrick lean, so here we go. The movie does sag a little in the middle. A few too many scenes of people wandering the hotel without much payoff. And there's an odd scene towards the end of the film where Wendy has locked her, how shall we put this nicely, frighteningly murderous husband in a pantry when she decides to go for a nap in a move that's about as likely as a fish climbing a tree. But let's be honest here. Most directors would kill to have made a movie even half as good as The Shining. The film is stuffed with so many memorable moments that have had such an impact on horror films and general pop culture that it's hard to keep count. The blood pouring out of the elevator, the creepy sisters, the axe smashing through the door, red rum, all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. I could go on. The Shining is dazzling, magnificent, breathtaking. And the fact that it seems astonishing now that Kubrick and Duvall received Golden Raspberry nominations for it speaks to how much the movie's reputation has grown over the years. There can't be many people out there who haven't seen it, but if you're one of them and you have an interest in movies made to wow, excite, entertain, provoke thoughts, don't waste any more time. Go out and get yourself a copy. Anyway, nothing more to say. This is Movie Maverick signing out.